say the quiet part loud. And it's only quiet among people who look like me. In Black, Indigenous, people of color in those communities, they're talking about it. And we should be talking about it too. And that is that what we're seeing now, it's a white mess. Yeah. Now, this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers for people who haven't unpacked their privilege or even understood what it means to unpack your privilege, and people who don't fully understand not just racism itself, but systemic racism and how deeply embedded it is into every aspect of American culture. Everything that's happening in DC, in the country right now, that is an absolute nightmare, is a result of white supremacy. Full stop, period. It's a result of the systems built on it. And it's a result of those who are white and are in power and who are doing everything they can to maintain that power at the expense of everybody who is not that. So when we talk about systems that are crumbling and that need to crumble, we have to understand that the system isn't just, the way our government is structured or the Republicans versus Democrats. It is the systemic racism, the systemic prejudice that, like I said, it's in every facet of American life. Now, I don't talk a lot about this publicly because, like I said, I am this color, and so I'm not going to hold the mic on this. I'm going to pass it to people who experience this kind of prejudice and can speak to it authoritatively. But as someone who has a sizable platform and someone who tries to be an ally, I don't want to pretend like I'm ignoring it, or that I don't know about it, or that I'm trying to make it about something else. We need to call a spade a spade. So you may have heard me talk about being accidentally racist, that there are a lot of people on the right side of things who are accidentally racist. And I say that because they think racism is just, triple K kind of stuff and that kind of hate and violence. They don't understand microaggressions. They don't understand, financial assumptions based on color. They don't understand prejudice. There's just so many things. There's so many things. And I say this as a white person who went most of my life not knowing that as well, not understanding that. But then I've spent a lot of times in intersectional feminist communities. And intersectional means you are female and, it's feminist and some other population that is discriminated or marginalized. So BIPOC, BIPOC, LGBTQ, disabled, queer, all those kinds of things. And these incredible people taught me a lot, really opened my eyes and gave me an education. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's a good thing. So right now what we're struggling with is people not seeing it yet. They're very close. And you've heard me say that as certain parts of our government begin to come under fire or crumble. So we're looking at the SAVE Act. We're looking at Social Security. We're looking at immigration. So we're getting into this sort of like intersectional area where white privilege is bludgeoning to death anyone who is not that. And it's going to be really hard for us as a culture to fully address all this, because there is so much fragility around even unpacking your privilege. And I get that as a healer, as someone who understands the shadow. I understand why this is, because I think people would readily look within themselves and say, well, I don't hate because of skin color, so I'm not racist. People are willing to do that level. They're willing to do that level of deconstruction. But when you get to anything deeper than that, it's challenging because it triggers their self-identity and it triggers their sense of self-belief and their place in the world. Now, the main lie, is there one main lie? There's so many lies about white supremacy. But kind of the big one that goes under the radar is there's so many things built in white culture. There's this idea, whether overt or unspoken, that you have it good because you worked for it, because you deserve it. And so if other people are underprivileged, it's because they didn't work for it and they didn't deserve it. And so that's where it gets into their self-belief that if you topple someone's psychological underpinnings like that, it is dangerous. It's dangerous. And people really begin to crumble and it gets messy. So I guess at the heart of this, all I really wanted to say is when people are so frustrated, but they're not waking up, why won't they wake up? Well, this is why. This is why, because they have to do the deconstruction of their own whiteness and how this white culture has contributed to the demise and the devastation of millions of people. This is going to be tough, and this is going to take a while. But it's already begun. We're already underway as we're having conversations about immigration, about race, because of that, about all these systems that support vulnerable populations. It's underway. It's well underway. So as this goes forward, we all individually and collectively need to do the hard thing. We need to begin to unpack our privilege and get into the subconscious beliefs that we maybe didn't even know were there. Where did we silently agree that it was okay to let certain populations suffer? Where did we separate ourselves from those populations? Where have we been unconscious to the fact that we've let it happen? So it'll take time. But we're going to get there. And we've already begun.
Yeah, so I'm away from home. So just to reiterate, if you voted for Kamala, none of this upheaval will be happening. All you government workers that voted for Trump and all this nonsense, you voted for Kamala, you would still have your job, still have your benefits, still have your health care. You veterans that work at Veterans Affairs, you would have still had your therapists and stuff, and you would still you would have still been able to continue to talk shit about the Democrats and liberals all you want. But you'd have still had your jobs, but you'd have still be able to have your therapy, but you still had your benefits. All your rural districts, you'd have still had your education funding, you still had your healthcare funding, you still had your Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and you'd still got to talk shit about Democrats and liberals. This is what you did.